the first pick.
All righty, it is Thursday, January 23rd. I'm Jared. That's Tyler. This is On the Clock, your Just Baseball College and MLB Draft podcast. Be sure to like us, subscribe, whatever you need to do on whatever platforms you listen to make sure you're getting all the latest episodes from us. Tyler, it's MLB Draft Board season. How are we feeling?
Feel pretty good. Better than I was last week, because let me tell you, whatever is going around, RSV, flu, whatever it is, not fun. Not fun at all.
Don't need it.
Yep. So
but
kind of delayed proceedings a little bit, but you know, here we are.
Yep.
We're a little less than 3 weeks away from the college season. So hey, College Board.
Yeah, I think the other day it was like 20 days, or we're close to 20 days being left, and then we got college baseball. We got the top 80 College Board, top 80 MLB draft prospects, the guys you should be watching in the college baseball season. Before we kind of dive into some of the specifics of the board, Tyler, just give us a little overview, kind of the class itself, what you kind of think so far of the college players.
Yeah, so we mentioned it in the piece itself. Like, this is a weak college class compared to what we've had in recent years. 24 was kind of in between. It was like there's top heavy players, but there wasn't a ton of depth. And then 23, we obviously know the 23 class was really good. But 25 is admittedly one of the weaker classes we've seen in recent years. There's just not a ton of top heavy guys. Like, you look at, Jace Lavel, who we even haven't won on this list.
Mm-hmm.
There's some questions about the hit tool. Is he playing center field long term at his size because he's 6'6", 240? You kind of take those into account, but also it's like 70 grade, maybe even 80 raw juice from the left side, and there's decent field to hit from that side of the plate as well. So you kind of look at that and go, well, who can you physically put there to kind of supersede him as that one spot? And we can dive into that later as a separate topic, but that's kind of where everything was like, there's lots of question marks with the talent in this class. And I would even go out on a limb and say maybe some of the draft eligible sophomores this year are better than the juniors. Like, there's a fair mix of some depth here the farther down you get on the board. So like, you start looking at some of the Tennessee guys like Dean Curley, Fisher, Keelan, Virginia's duo of Henry Ford and Godbout that are kind of just chilling there. You can totally see those guys be top 10 picks maybe in the future, or even like just in general, like in the top 10 on our list. So we'll see what happens and see how it evolves. I think it's a lot more wide open than we really think it is at this point in the proceedings. But overall, I would definitely say that there's a lot left to be desired here with this class in general.
Yeah, and as the season goes on, for the viewers, the board will be updated. So
Yes.
What's the next iteration, like a top 200?
Yeah, so the way that we're going to kind of do this first is have two separate lists, top 80 for the prep and the college, kind of just get something out there before the season starts. But we'll conjoin everything into a top 200 and gradually grow the list as we go. So we might be a 300, could be a 400 by the end of the year. That's the ultimate goal. But as of right now, I would say the top 200 is going to come out sometime in March. Kind of when conference play is starting for the college guy. We're kind of in the thick of things with the high school season. And we have more idea of like what's changed from January to February to March as compared to like we're kind of just throwing darts to a board right now and hoping we hit the bullseye. Because admittedly, that's just where we are at in this stage is it's still a bit too early to kind of place admittedly some players to rounds. Like, you want to see what they do in the spring going into the summer, see what changes from what you saw in the past, like last summer or even during the fall. We see what's changed and go from there.
Yeah, the list is far from final. There's still a whole season to go. You got things like the MLB Draft Combine, the MLB Draft League, where guys will go and try to raise their stock a little bit before draft day to see kind of where they can get put. So let's go into this board. We're not going to go through all top 80 prospects because we'd be here all night if we were going to do that. I'll start rattling off the top 10, and then we'll kind of have a little bit of discussion on those guys. So Dean Curley comes in at 10, shortstop out of Tennessee. Devin Taylor out of Indiana, outfielder, comes in at 9. Luke Stevenson, catcher out of North Carolina, comes in at 8. Ike Irish catcher out of Auburn, comes in at 7. Brendan Summerhill, outfielder out of Arizona, comes in at 6. Ava Arquette, shortstop out of Oregon State, comes in at 5. Cam Cannarella, outfielder out of Clemson, comes in at 4. And then Tyler Bremner, right-handed pitcher out of UC Santa Barbara's 3. Jamie Arnold, left-handed pitcher out of Florida State's 2. And Jace Laviolette, outfielder, Texas A&M, comes in at number 1. First question for you before I want to dive into Jace, because he's the top guy on the list. Out of those 10, who do you think could potentially become the number 1 guy?
Yeah, I think ultimately you look at the duo of arms at 2 and 3, Jamie Arnold, Tyler Bremner.
Yeah.
For my, just speaking out of what I can see right now, I could totally see those two being 1, 2 in this class at maybe even the onset of April. Just because, the bats in this class it's not loaded on that side of the class personally.
Yeah.
I talked about Jace Laviolette to kind of start. But then you look at guys where, okay, Devin Taylor's kind of fully maxed out. How much more can you take out of that profile? Can you play center field? The bat obviously already looks good enough, and I'm not trying to, take a hack at the player here, but as a projection standpoint, you kind of look at that and go, like, how much more can we get out of this? Caden Bodine's the same way. Like, he's fully maxed out. You kind of wonder how much more power is in there, because if he can hit for power as a catcher, that's with the bat the ball skills he already has. That's very, very valuable, and he would be the number 1 catcher in this class no matter what in that case. So with Arnold, I flip-flop between the two because they're both really, really good in my eyes. I've seen both. Arnold has mainly been the fastball slider guy for the past couple of years. Saw the velo uptick during his sophomore campaign, but didn't quite have that changeup to kind of work with. And, he has metrics to go with him that really help his case. Like, it's a release height of 54 inches off the ground. Gets a ton of arm side run. So it's a really runny 2-seam that's flat to the plate. It's like a -4.2 vertical approach angle. And guys just can't touch it with the command that he has. And the sweeper gets, I think it averages like 10 inches of sweep to the glove side, because he's lefty, not righty. So I had to make sure I get that right there. But there is just so much to like just in those 2 pitches alone with the strikes that he has. But the changeup's getting negative vert on it in just season bullpens right now.
That's nuts.
Like, it's insane what he's been able to do in just the quick glimpses that we've seen on Twitter over the past couple of weeks. So if he comes out and he's throwing that kind of changeup in game consistently with feel,
that'll be nasty.
I think that might be your number 1 overall player in this class completely. And with Bremner, he's got the pitchability, he's got the 3-pitch mix. The slider took strides this past year. It's now gone from like a low 80s sweeper to now it's like at its best 88-90 with
that video from USA, man.
Was
nasty.
Tyler's
disgusting. Got video on Twitter. If you haven't seen it, Tyler Bremner throwing just bullets. It's fun.
Yeah, and it's like 95-98 with that slider, and not to mention maybe a borderline 80 changeup, which you don't throw 80s around often with just about anything. 80s are very, very, very rare in the scouting industry. So it's easily a 7, and that's in and of itself probably the best pitch in the entire class. It's got roughly 14-15 miles per hour of separation from the fastball. It's screwball-esque just with the way that he kind of releases the ball. Kylie Picadano showed me a video of this from the collegiate trials, but essentially when he comes out, the ball is kind of just really rolling down off the index finger, so he's getting a lot more spin, a lot more action off of it, and he just lands it consistently. It's some of the best changeup feel I've ever seen.
I will plug, if you're new to Just Baseball, check out our Tyler Bremner interview. He breaks down the pitch grip on the camera for us. Really good interview. So check that one out. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you, but wanted to plug that.
No. That's a great plug, honestly. I'm not going to complain because that was a fun interview.
Yeah.
But essentially, that's what Bremner is. Like, I'd say it's a safer, I don't want to say a safer floor because they're both pretty similar in terms of their floor. But I think with Arnold, you get more upside. He's preferred because he's a lefty compared to righty. So that's where we kind of stand there. So those two guys are the main ones. If I had to throw anyone else out there that could be the number one guy moving forward, Ava Arquette, Oregon State, Brendan Summerhill from Arizona could be a guy that, if he has a great junior year, could be up there in that conversation. Cannarella can also be thrown in there too. I think he's got a chance now that he's fully healthy and doesn't have the shoulder injury to kind of to hold him back. There might be more power in there. If there's more power in that profile, it's pretty fun.
Yeah. I will say, just plug our podcast more. 5 of the top 10, we got interviews with them on the YouTube channel. So check them out. I think we got Cannarella, Summerhill, Irish, Taylor. So maybe 4. Oh, and Bremner. Almost forgot the big one. Yeah, for me, I mean, I agree with you on kind of the arms potentially becoming the number one. The one guy I want to watch, just because I saw him when Indiana came to Maryland, is Devin Taylor. There's a lot of chase issues there, some contact issues as well. Hits the ball extremely hard though, and does a good job at barreling it up. So he's a guy I really want to watch this year to see if he can make any adjustments to really improve that chase rate and make some more consistent contact. Because man, like that guy on the field works extremely hard. And he's just a team leader. He's out there grinding every single day. He's a guy you really want out there, just kind of leading your team. So he's a guy I'm going to really pay attention to because I think he could take off if he really makes some of those brief adjustments. You saw him at USA. Did he show anything different there?
A little jumpy on fastballs, admittedly. Yeah. But overall, like the contact was good. He did show the power. The biggest thing with him, like I said, was there's not much projection to it. He's not a surefire center fielder, so like he's going to play center field this year. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it with that Indiana team. But he might be a left fielder at the next level, given the fact that he's already 6'1", 215. Might be a bit more of a clunkier runner than the average athlete. So you kind of look at that and go, I don't know if he can stick there long term. But if he proves that he can do that, I think he's going to be a lot higher on our board compared to what he is now. I think we have him at like 9. So I could see him being a top 5 college guy at the end of the year if he can prove that he can play center field, and also gives us more tools and more clay to work with in terms of like improving the approach, like you mentioned, and kind of just showing us more tools across the board, essentially, is the best way to put it. But in no way, shape, or form is he any way of a slouch. Like, this is the guy that's the first – he's the first Indiana player since Alex Dickerson in 2010 to have hit 20-plus home runs. And that's saying something when Kyle Schwarber was an Indiana player in the time since then. So kind of interested to see what happens there.
Yeah, I agree. The other thing I wanted to cover, you said you talked about this a little bit in the write-up, is kind of the draft-eligible sophomores versus juniors. So for those who don't know, draft-eligible sophomores, it's a certain date, right? Their birthday, they have to be 20 on draft day, or what was it? 21 on draft day? I can't remember what the rule is here.
Yeah, so it's either you're 21 on draft day as a sophomore.
Yeah.
And the cutoff date is August 1st. So if you have a birthday of August 1st,
that's right.
For this year's example, 2024. Yeah, it is only 1 year old. Tyler, good job. But like August 1st, I'm going to keep doing this. August 1st, 2004 is the cutoff date for this year's class. Finally got it. Third time's a charm.
We're going to get there. I believe in you.
I got there, so that's all that matters.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the cutoff date for this year's class. So August 1st, 2004 is the cutoff, and anyone born on that day or prior to that's going to be eligible. If you're an August 2nd, 2004 birthday, you are going to be the oldest person that's not a senior in the 25 class, essentially.
Yeah, and basically as a draft-eligible sophomore, you probably have some more leverage in terms of negotiating contracts and things like that with a team. Talk a little bit about the difference. Like, do you think the draft-eligible sophomore is likely the more stronger part of this draft class?
Yeah, I want to say that there's more overall talent in the sophomore class than there is in the junior class. And what I mean by that is kind of just looking at what the upside could be. So like Dean Curley, for example, is I want to say he's the top eligible sophomore on our board. Let me just double check. Sorry, Stevenson's the top one. But Stevenson and Curley, those two are guys that, they stand out for what they are. Like Stevenson could be the next Kyle Schwarber in terms of how physical he is behind the plate. He's also a surefire defender, has great arm strength, good power, great approach. And then you look at Curley, who could be a shortstop at the next level, but he's also got that same approach as Stevenson, where he does not miss the fastball. You throw a fastball at Curley, he's going to rip it.
Yeah.
And with Stevenson, you do have a bit more of an issue with spin. Curley doesn't quite have that, and it's more of a compact swing. But Stevenson's left-handed power and approach, as well as that defensive prowess, is what's going to keep him high on the list. And for me, I could see him being catcher one right off the board, because Ike Irish, as much as I love that bat, I just don't know if he's a catcher at the next level. He might be a corner outfield at the next level. And then kind of looking farther down the board, too, at some of the other guys, like Henry Ford, going to be playing outfield this year. He has some of the best power in the class. Looking even farther down, like we start to go towards Trey Phelps, Georgia kid. His defense has really, really improved over the past couple of years. I had guys tell me as a senior, it was a bit sloppy, really inconsistent. We weren't sure where he was going to grade out as a defender anywhere on the field. To now it's like he might just genuinely be a surefire third baseman or corner outfielder. It's going to be one of those two. So kind of just looking at the kind of the power in that class right now is arguably somewhat better than like some of the juniors. Like Devin Taylor could be average power, whereas Stevenson's above average. Curley might be above average. Trey Phelps might be above average when all is said and done. And then you look at Henry Ford, who just straight up has plus power. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. And then even look at the arms. Like Cade Anderson could just be the best lefty in this class. Cade Anderson, kind of looking at it, he had Tommy John, I think, his junior year going into his senior year. So that's why he's at LSU. But he's already shown us he's got the fastball curveball combo down on lock. Like it's a really, really good fastball up in the zone. Has the curveball to really dive off and tunnel off of that. So he's got great vertical separation between the two pitches. There's feel for a slider. There's feel for a changeup. And he's still going to be pretty young on draft day. He'll be 21 exact on July 13th. So, you look at that and kind of look at the overall upside that you can see in that class. And you move towards the idea like, okay, there's a bit more upside in this class from the sophomores than there would be from the juniors. And I think at the end of the day, you'll see a lot more of those sophomores higher up on the board.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the like leverage that they have. They have that leverage to say, hey, if I don't get over, I can go back to campus for another year. Yep. And you would still be within like the higher end range of like the juniors, essentially. Like not Devin Obi per se, but he's an example where like he's going to be technically a senior or a grad transfer.
That grad, yeah.
Yeah.
He graduated from Duke.
Yeah. And he's not even going to be 22 on draft day. And he was a junior this past year. So you look at that and you go, okay, that's not terrible. And then you look at guys like Jalen Flores last year was the guy that was draft eligible as a sophomore. He's now back in school. He won't be 22 on draft day. He'll be like 2011 or not 2011, but 21 and 11 on draft day. So you look at that and go, you're kind of putting yourself at risk. That's a risky leverage play because injuries are a thing. But at the same time, if you know that you can go back and you can improve your draft stock and get more money the next year, I don't see really any harm in doing that. But you're also, like I said, playing with that fire. You get injured again, there goes that chance to be paid. So it's an interesting situation in that regard. But I think this is definitely the year where we'll see a lot more draft eligible sophomores paid their dues compared to like years past. So like those guys mentioned, Trent Caraway is another guy that's the draft eligible sophomore. He could have a very big year this year. So like it could just very well be a sophomore heavy college class.
Good year to be a sophomore for all those draft guys. Last question we got to get into on the board before we kind of dive into some of our like just missed guys. I'm going to talk about the number one, Jace Laviolette. I'll let you break down why he's number one, and then I'm kind of looking at the data here, and I'll read off some of that too to kind of supplement. But talk about why he is your number one guy.
Yeah, the biggest thing with him is obviously the defensive ability to play in center field.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the separator for me when you look at some of the other outfielders. Like Cannarella, yeah, surefire outfielder, probably center fielder at the next level. But then you look at the power output compared between the two. LaViolette's getting 70 to 80 grade power numbers. I want to say his max last year was like 116 on an exit velocity.
115.7. 98th percentile. The probably only guy he's behind is Jack Caglione.
100%. Or even like the guy from Austin Pay.
Oh yeah,
went
yeah.
To the White Sox. I can't remember his name, but I remember
he was like a or something.
Yeah, like the Siberian Smasher or something was his nickname. And I hate that I can't remember his name right now. We'll get back to you guys on that one.
Yeah.
But like you compare the two, like they would end up playing center field together this year. And if LaViolette can show you that, you know, hey, 6'6", 230, 240 can play center field, you kind of take that and run with it with 70 power from the left side. And, you know, I talk about the hit tool, and the end zone contact is a little bit underwhelming for a guy that would be a 1-1 type. It was something like a 75% contact rate overall, which is, you know, just a bit under average. I think the college average is closer to like 78%. But the chase rate's good. It's around 20%. And you kind of look at the swing, and he leverages his body so well that you know he's going to be hitting for a lot of power moving forward. And power is king now. So you look at that. Left-handed power is going to be more appropriate than right-handed power. And with Cannarella, 45 right now is probably his max for power, maybe 50 now that he's fully healthy. I want to see what he looks like as a fully healthy left-handed hitter this year and see if maybe the speed even comes out more, because he didn't run the bases much last year with the shoulder injury. So I'm very interested to see what happens there. But that's essentially what it is LaViolette has proven that he can play center field, and the 70 grade power from the left side with a hit tool that, again, leaves a bit to be desired, but like a 45 hit 7 power guy from the left side, not too shabby. And in a class like this, where you kind of have some questions at the top of the scale here, again, you start to wonder the question, who can supersede him to take that position away? And ultimately, that's what it came down to was, I still want to see Jamie Arnold throw that changeup in game this year. If he's not, like he hasn't done it yet, it's just been fastball slider. He's shown that he can do that. I want to see how the changeup plays.
Yeah.
So he's not just a 2-pitch guy moving forward compared to some of the other guys. Like, yes, there's 2-pitch starters in the majors now. Ben Brown, Tyler Glasnow, all those guys are prime examples. But, you know, if you debut that changeup this year, sure, 1-1, perfect. But I just haven't seen that in game yet to really push myself into, hey, Jamie Arnold's already the number one guy in this class right now. Whereas LaViolette is already going to put himself amongst the top in college baseball in terms of home runs. I think he's already got 50 in his career. So there's in all likelihood, he's up there with Tommy White, Eddie Furness, Frank Fazzini, all these guys that are at the top of the leaderboard in college baseball for collegiate home runs, and he's doing it in 3 years.
Yeah. And he has insane EVs, 97 percentile and barrel percentage. Like, he doesn't chase a ton. That's a big opposite between him and Cags, right? Cags is chasing all over the place, but I feel like Jace has got a better feel. So yeah, that's our number one guy. Gonna move a little bit on to breaking down guys who just missed. So we're gonna go through guys who just missed the top 10. We're talking about power, so I want you to start with your guy because he's pretty powerful.
Oh yeah, and like before we even dive into it, Andrew Fisher, Tennessee, third baseman. Very, very, very good. Now, you kind of look at that, and with the day and age that the portal is now, started his career at Duke, went to Ole Miss, and now he's on his third team in 3 years with Tennessee.
And Liam Doyle has followed him everywhere.
Pretty much, yeah.
They're like buddies.
They are buddies. They were reportedly a package deal this year, is what I heard.
Yeah.
Which, hey, you take your best buddy to go with you, even when you started at different schools. Like, you take that.
Yeah,
that's just the portal has allowed you to do that in this day of age, and I don't have an issue with that.
Nope, not at all.
At all. But moving past that tangent with Andrew Fisher, kind of looking at what he's done. Like, yes, you look at the contact rate, and it's not the greatest. It was something like 72, 73% the past year. And I think that's more of a indication that he was swinging a little more than he was at Duke. I think Duke, he went from like 35% swing rate to like a 42, 43% swing rate at Ole Miss. And I think that's really heightened up the chase rate as well. But, this is a guy that he knows how to pull the ball in the air. And that's the most valuable batted ball event in baseball in general.
Yeah.
And we've had that surge in that approach of trying to hammer the ball to the pull side for the past couple of years. And he just does it so well. It's I'd imagine, plus power at the end of the day with a hit tool that's a lot better than we think. Because, yes, the sample size on the Cape was pretty small, but it was something like an 85% contact rate, really hammered pitches in the zone. It's a really, really good bat first profile that I wish I could put in the top 10, to be honest with you. Because we didn't have guys like Curley, Conrad, Bodine in the mix, in front of him, I would have put him at 9 or 10 on there, to be honest with you. I think personally he's going to have a great year with Tennessee, and I'm fully in on the idea that he could hit 20-plus home runs in that ballpark with how short the wall is in right field and how the ball flies in Knoxville. Like, that is a mountainous area. That ball is going to fly a ton.
Yeah. And I don't want to, get into this because we're going to talk about this on the top 25 college teams, but the fact that Tennessee lost, Drew Beam, Christian Moore, God knows who else, Dylan Dreiling, all these guys, they're still going to be good. They're still going to be really good.
I'm pretty sure their entire 1 through 5 got drafted last year because it was Semo, Blake Burke, Dreiling was in there, Kavaris Tears was in there.
Yep.
Kavaris Tears was highly underrated for me personally. God, who was the other guy that was in there? I'm
going to go and find this because I wrote about this in the top 25 article that's going to go out. Let me see if I can find it.
My brain,
Don't worry, I got you.
Righty Semo, Blake Burke.
So it was Liam Doyle, nope, that's the wrong one. That's guys are coming in. Where did I write this down? Here it is. Christian Moore, Blake Burke, Billy Emick, Drew Beam, Dylan Dreiling, Kavaris Tears, AJ Causey, and Aaron Coombs. And I think Coombs was the only one that didn't go in a top 5 round.
Correct. That is correct.
I had to look it up too, but so don't worry. I wrote about it and I still forgot because there's so many names.
I forgot about Billy Amick. And I guess the reason why is because he did have the injury at one point. I think it was appendicitis.
Yeah.
Because he had to go to the hospital, get it removed, came back. And the first pitch back was the Gage jump home run he hit off the curveball. I don't know how I forgot that.
But anyways, yes, Tennessee, #good. Watch out for Andrew Fisher. Yeah, that's the moral of the story.
Pretty much. And again, we look at the other bats there, Dean Curley, Gavin Keelan, great projection in that lineup. I still think Tennessee is going to mash this year, and they still got some quality arms in the bullpen.
Good times.
Might be another SEC title for the Volunteers this year.
The guy I'm going with is a guy you've mentioned multiple times on the pod already, Henry Ford. Played mainly first base for Virginia last year. I saw him quite a few times. I love that he's built like an auto mechanic because he is built. That guy's full throughout. has a ton of power, like you mentioned, had 112.4 max exit velo. I think 94.7 was his average. It's some issues with the hit tool. There's a lot of chase, but he does a great job on getting barrel the ball. Like he does that with ease. Like when he hits the ball and makes contact, man, it's hard. He hits it on the right spot of the bat, and you know it's going to go a long way. As you mentioned, he's playing the outfield, which I think is going to be huge for him this year, like in terms of draft stock, right? If he can show that he can be mobile out there, have the athleticism, and he's an athletic kid. Even when I watched him play first base last year, like he was very mobile. He wasn't stiff. He showed off good athleticism. So I think he's a guy that I'm definitely going to be watching. That Virginia lineup is stupid good. I don't know where they're going to play everybody. It's kind of insane. But they have like Aiden Harris, who's going to be on the bench, and like all these other guys. And like Jacob Nunnally should potentially be starting in that lineup, but I don't know where he actually starts. So they're just going to be loaded. But Henry Ford is the guy that I am looking at.
Yeah. So two things I want to touch on since you brought up the loadedness of that lineup, because holy heck, it is good, man.
Jacob Ferentz was D1 baseball's like preseason All-American catcher, first team.
First team, yeah.
As like
Not to mention,
he's also like a grad senior.
Yeah. And then you bring in Josh Hansen, Eric Becker, Henry Godbout, Ford in right field. Didowick's returned. Yes. Didowick's probably your center fielder. You still have Aiden Teal, who can both pitch and hit.
They weirdly had Aiden Teal in center this fall, and Didowick in left.
There's somebody trying to remember his name. Mikey. I'm in a group chat with him. Shout out to Mikey. He does a great job. He works for Villanova. He was kind of giving us a full lineup in a group chat the other day. And I mean, he had Teal in center field. Nunnally was a DH. Didowick in left field. That kid's
so good defensively too. The fact that he's going to DH is just dumb. Like, that's what people need to remember about college baseball in the draft. Also, like, if guys are playing out of position, it's because the team is absolutely loaded, and it doesn't mean they can necessarily not play the outfield. Jacob Nunnally can play the outfield.
Nunnally can be your starting center fielder in a year or two. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But it's just like year in, year out, that Virginia lineup's just so stacked, man. It's ridiculous.
And a reminder that Ford put all this performance up last year as a freshman, by the way. So let's keep that in note.
That's the
cleanup part in that lineup as a freshman.
Yeah. By the way, if anybody wants to follow Mikey on Twitter at MJD_analysis, he does a fantastic job. So I want to give Mikey a shout out. But another thing I wanted to touch on too with Henry Ford is, we talk about the hit tool might be a bit out there. Like you mentioned, the chase rates pretty astronomical, which is not out of the norm for Virginia guys, because like Casey Sauke was pretty aggressive last year.
Geloff was too, wasn't he?
Geloff was aggressive. Didowick's pretty aggressive too, and now he's back. He's gonna be doing the same thing probably, but like Henry Godbout is like the least aggressive bat in that lineup. Like, it's insane.
That guy's good.
But then you look at Henry Ford, and like, yes, he's had trouble with spin, and I think it's adjustability, because you can say his swing's grooved, and I think that's definitely true. Like, he does struggle with spin, and I think with that front leg lift that he has, it's going to be a bit tough moving forward. But you cannot sneak a fastball by him whatsoever.
No,
it's really impressive what he can do with fastball, and even velocity above 95. Like, he posted like a really minuscule whiff rate this past year. So that's something I look for in a bat. Like, that's one of my scouting pillars. Like, how well do you handle velocity? Henry Ford's that person, because you can work on spin recognition. Hitting a fastball is a lot more tougher than people kind of really put it out to be.
Yeah,
and if you can hit velo, like if you can't hit high velo, there's an issue, because that's the way the game's trending. So that's why any of the guys you see high up on the list, you can assume that they do a pretty good job of handling velo. That's one of my biggest scouting pillars.
Yeah, I mean, it's the last thing I'll add about Ford before we move on to the next part is that I think I saw him this fall, and he went 3 for 5 in the scrimmage, and 2 doubles, a laced single that was just like crushed up the middle, and I think he flew out twice. to deep center field. Like, it wasn't like it was just like a normal fly out, like warning track shots for both guys. So watch out for Henry Ford. Didn't mean to also get into a team tangent because we're going to have a top 25 breakdown at some point, but we just got you going on some team tangents to start. We're going to talk about
if it involves Virginia's lineup, I'm fine with that tangent.
Yep,
because it's good.
Same
It's
thing with Tennessee.
good.
Now we want to go to some guys who just missed the top 80 overall board. So these are guys who are like maybe in the 90 to 100 range, although my hitter, to be fair, is probably not even in the 90 to 125 range. But we're going to go with your pitcher first. Left-handed pitcher, Grant Richardson out of Grand Canyon. Let's talk about him.
Yeah, he was a tough one to cut. Ultimately, the reason why he didn't make it is he's probably going to be out for the year. He had some sort of elbow surgery. Not too sure if it was the internal brace or TJ, but as far as I'm aware, he may not see the field this year. So that was kind of the reason why I was like, I'll bring him back, kind of keep him as a sleeper, because I think ultimately he's good. Really, really good fastball. It's got good cut right action. So what I mean by that is like it's got the good right and left coming in, averages about 16 to 17 vertical. And you'd expect to lose that at the next level, given the way that the balls are different from college to pro ball. But still getting, 16 inches of vertical break from a kind of like a low-ish 3/4 slot, not lowish, but like a normal 3/4 slot is pretty good. And it's just a really tough fastball to hit. It's had something like a 30% whiff rate this year. And again, for me, fastballs that miss bats are very good. That's another one of my scouting pillars. It's like you can miss bats with the fastball. That's a good start for a foundation. And he was pretty predominantly fastball heavy this past year. He gets up to 96, 97. So having the feel to throw hard from the left side with the action that he has on the fastball, holds the velocity, has a decent feel for throwing strikes. Not the greatest, but it's not the worst that I've seen. Not to mention the breaking ball went from like a low 80 sweeper to like it's like cutter slider hybrid in like the mid 80s that really catches guys off guard, tunnels off the fastball pretty well. And there's feel for a changeup. Again, I don't know if he really does see the field this year. I feel like if he did, he would be a lot higher on this list, personally, for me. Because we had him at like 75 or something the last time we updated the list. So he's definitely going to be very interesting come draft day, I think, because again, you value velocity from the left side. Lefties are going to be more valuable because finding something like that is really tough.
Yeah.
And having the kind of qualities that he has with the fastball already gives him good foundation. It gives him leeway with the secondaries if they're not the best. So it'll be interesting to see if like a pro pitching depth team like Seattle or Milwaukee kind of looks at that profile and goes, we'll take a flyer on this in like the middle of day 2 to save money somewhere. But then turns out you got like a really good sleeper pick to go with it. So that's where I'm at with him. Again, wish he was healthy this year, but pitching injuries happen. It's baseball. I'm glad we've kind of gone past the point in baseball scouting where we don't look at injuries, especially elbow injuries, as like a deterrent, but more as like an embracement kind of.
Yeah. I kind of had a similar profile on my guy, although he's the opposite. He missed all of last year with Tommy John surgery. Another left-handed pitcher. I think it was Tommy John, right, from McCoy. I don't want to like throw out false information there.
Yeah, it was BJ.
Kyle McCoy, left-hander out of Maryland. Probably the reason he didn't make the board again was because he missed a ball last year, but he was pitching healthy this fall. Got to catch him out against Virginia, and it was really impressive. He was 90 to 93, which is great coming back from Tommy John surgery. Had a really good feel for his slider and changeup. And the one thing you worry about coming back from TJ is command, but his command was there. He struck out Henry Gobb out in the first inning, guy we talked about that just eats fastballs. Did he throw Henry Gobb out a fastball? No. He just went slider changeups all day long. Really tall, kind of a big presence on the mound as well, and comes out of different like quarter slot. But just an impressive pitcher, like a guy I'm really excited to see a lot at Maryland and hoping he can stay healthy. And I think he's going to be a huge part for that Terrapins team that's always known for their bats. If they can have an arm like McCoy on the mound to be the Friday night guy, I mean, that's going to be huge for them. So he's a guy I really, really want to see kind of take off and then hopefully leap into our top 80.
Yeah, I'm with you. And like, this is also a guy that was touching 96.
Yeah.
As a
Out
freshman.
of high school, right? Or
it was both. It was both. Yeah. Like the main thing I heard was obviously like the elbow was kind of shot going into the freshman year at Maryland.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Which ultimately led to him missing last year. And again, you nailed it on the head. That's kind of why he didn't make it, was missing that sophomore year. If he was healthy, he's up there at the top.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys that had that issue. Like Jack O'Connor for Virginia was another guy where he was really highly touted going into his sophomore year, had a bad year, got injured, missed the rest of the year.
That's who I was torn between talking about too, is Jack O'Connor and Kyle McCoy.
And like with O'Connor, I kind of wonder what his role is this year, because Virginia does have a couple of good arms, and they get Woolfolk back.
Yep, they got Bryson Moore. They got a bunch of freshmen. They got Evan Blanco. Like, it's going to be interesting to see how they navigate that.
Yeah, and then like you look at McCoy, and there's really, comparing the situations, like McCoy doesn't have really anybody to kind of go up against him for that rotation spot.
It's kind of Maryland arms as Maryland arms kind of go. Like Jake Eager's interesting. They've pulled together. Like that year they had Jason Savacool, Ryan Ramsey, and I can't remember who the third guy was. Like they had good arms. Nick Dean. The guy, Mr. 88 to 90, just nasty changeup.
Hey, that was a prototypical left-handed version of Thomas Harrington.
It was gorgeous.
At his peak, he was good.
Yeah, when that velo was up, it was nice.
Yeah. Didn't Ramsey throw a perfect game?
He did. He's also with the Royals now.
Okay, yeah, that makes more sense now. Because I was like, I know he's in pro ball.
Not to get into a Ryan Ramsey rant here, but he went 6-4 with a 2.43 ERA and 97 strikeouts and 89 innings last year in pro ball. So also 24 in high A though. So let's put that in mind.
But hey, that's not shabby whatsoever.
No. But yes, that is my pick, Kyle McCoy. We're going to get into some hitters now. I need you to talk about this guy from Western Kentucky because I don't know if I've heard of him.
Yes, Ryan Weidman. So kind of a background on Weidman is didn't have a ton of offers coming out of high school, so he went the JUCO route out of Georgia. I think it was Georgia Highlands College. And he slashed like 430, 520, and slugged like 820 last year at Georgia Highlands. And, got the offer to go play. I think it's center field now is where he's going to be playing at Western Kentucky. But in the scrimmage they had against Tennessee, he balled out. He had a home run off of really talented arm. I can't remember the name of the guy that he hit it off of, but he impressed scouts in a large capacity against the defending national champions, which granted, yes, it's fall ball, but
impressive.
They're still throwing out their best guys at you. So, looking at that, he made a good impression there. And like, he was a guy that I did want to put him on the board. It's just like, hey, this is a guy with power and speed. That's a really good threat that kind of mix together. Like power speed guys are highly valuable in this day of age. But for me, the reason why he didn't make the list ultimately was there were just other guys I wanted to push onto the list, like Joe Arriola, Zach Harris out of Georgia. That I thought, they've already shown to you that like they can dominate on certain days, and they have the tools to kind of really go forward and be pro guys. And I'm not saying Weidman isn't, but I want to see Weidman perform against a larger sample size, essentially, before I say I am fully in on this guy. Which again, it's one game against Tennessee in the fall. It's still impressive, but what does that look like over the span of a full year yet? I'm not too sure. So I kind of want to see what happens. And like the Conference USA is good this year. So He's not going against middling competition at all. Like Dallas Baptist is in that conference, and they've got a plethora of arms. So I'm very interested to see what Weidman can do. I would not be shocked if he's like a top 50 college guy when all is said and done by the end of the year.
I love it.
But ultimately, like I said, I just wanted to push some of the other guys onto that list that have shown the tools in college over the past couple years or within the past year, compared to a guy that, coming from the JUCO ranks. I just want to see a larger sample size against competition before I push him up onto that board as of right now. So I'm being cautious with it, but also understanding of the fact that like he could ultimately be higher up on this board than 80 if he was on it,
I love it. I think that's a great pick. I'm going to wrap it up with Jack Winay from Wake Forest. I got to see Jack Winay play last year mainly because Nick Kurtz went down with an injury and he wound up playing first base in that game. Saw the tweet that he was like out the next game. I'm like, oh, cool. Just drove all the way to Virginia. No Nick Kurtz. But I got to see the Jack Winay show and he went yard 2 or 3 times in that game. Absolutely absurd. Like he was draft eligible sophomore. It sounds like he, from Joe Doyle, was mentioning that he returned to campus to help kind of boost his draft stock a little bit further. But he slashed 297, 399, 649 with 20 home runs last year. Pretty impressive. I mean, he's got high average exit velos. He does a good job at getting the barrel to ball, hits the ball in the air a ton. He's starting to get better defensively. I think that's been some of the biggest concerns around his profile is like, where would he play? And a lot of it was he just didn't. Wake Forest was stacked last year, and there really wasn't a place to put him. So we'll see where they kind of play him out this year. But I think he's the guy, if he can really figure out where he's going to play defensively, show that he has that improved defense, and just fix some of the things in his swing that lead to the poor contact rates, I think he's a guy that could find himself going up draft boards quite a bit. Maybe not top 80, but I think he could be in the top 100.
Yeah, I think he follows under the same line as like Jalen Flores, where he's got the talent, was that draft eligible sophomore, went back to school to kind of boost that stock. And I could totally see him being like a corner outfielder too. He's not unserviceable.
Yeah.
Or like he's not great, but he's serviceable, essentially, is probably the best way to put it. And ultimately, could he be a first baseman? Yeah, but like he does mash. And I do like the profile as like a older guy now, save some money to kind of like play some draft strategy in there.
Mm-hmm.
But, hey, Wake Forest is deep this year.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be shocked if he's got 25 plus home runs if he stays healthy.
He's going to be fun. Well, that does it for our top 80 College Board coverage. Do you have any final thoughts before we kind of wrap things up?
Yeah. So I mentioned it in the introduction to the piece. We're going to be updating it throughout the year. So like I said earlier, we're going to do a top 200 in March, where it congeals the preps and the college guys together. And we're going to be putting in video. We're going to be putting in interviews. And whenever college starts here in a couple weeks, we're going to be putting in like scouting reports that we get from the field. So like, I know for a fact I will be in Arlington opening weekend. I'm still waiting to hear your plans if you're able to make it.
I will know them in like a couple of weeks.
Yeah. So for what it's worth, it might be both of us out there in Arlington opening weekend. So we're going to be getting guys like Gabe Davis, Nolan Schubert, trying to think of some of the other guys, Aiden Knack, Cam Cannarella, Brendan Summerhill, all these guys that you see up on the board right now. And we'll be updating it with the reports on like the little scouting report template I posted a couple weeks ago on Twitter, where we have full hitter, full pitcher reports, as well as innings and the bat trackers to kind of help us at the field to kind of show like velocity per inning or like how somebody handles an at bat and, go from there. So we're going to try and make this as interactive as possible for the reader. Cause I think that's a perfect way to kind of get some of the stuff that we do at the field to get more viewership.
Yep.
And the video itself is going to be very valuable, not only for, the reader at home, but also you look at some of the teams that go out and use kind of like video scouting as a tool we play a big role in that,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not just the, hey, Tyler's gone out to a field and does this all himself. No, it's just a team effort. This is fully what it is. So, every single one of our video can be used in a war room for draft day.
Yep. And
So like that's the most valuable thing.
yeah. I was going to say, I'll wrap up by saying, too, when we talk about team effort, we got tons of guys on our team to mention, like Monty Taylor, who's been doing some credible stuff on the college side. He's got ACC sophomore breakout articles, both on pitchers and hitters. So be sure to check out those. We have Peyton Sauer on our team, who's been doing some incredible stuff on the college side as well. JD Cameron's who's helping on the draft side. Has got some in-depth articles that he's going to do on some of the guys that are on the board. So kind of going a little bit deeper into those as well. And then we have Connor as well, who has just joined the Just Baseball team. I know he's been doing some great stuff out in the Arizona area. Be sure to check out all these guys, all the incredible work they're doing. They're really helping us push the board, push the college content, so we can kind of bring you guys the best college baseball and MLB draft content. For us at On the Clock, we've had some couple interviews drop. So if you subscribe to the YouTube channel, you'll get interviews with LSU head coach Jay Johnson. We had South Carolina pitching coach and recruiting coordinator Terry Rooney on recently. We got a bunch of other things coming up. As Tyler mentioned, the prep board will be dropping next week. So the top 80 high school MLB draft prospects. We have the college top 25. So the top 25 teams in college baseball, we're going to start doing a bi-weekly one. So the rankings will get updated throughout the season. We got preseason All-Americans coming your way. We'll be doing like a college baseball preview as well. So lots of content coming. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, to Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure you can stay up to date. Make sure you check out justbaseball.com so we can get all the boards and every article written by some of our awesome writers. But until next time, we'll see you.